Hi, everyone. Welcome to Empty Nest Creations. My name is Wendy. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, we're going to be working on 3 thrift upcycles. These are all projects for Christmas. If you enjoy this type of video, if you enjoy thrift flips, home decor DIYs, this is the channel for you. I really appreciate everyone who's already subscribed. If you haven't already subscribed, I would love it if you would consider clicking on the subscription button and click that bell notification. It's going to let you know every time I upload a new video. That's one way that you can help support my channel. Another way is you can comment on these videos. Leave a thumbs up, give me a comment. Even if you just put some emojis in the comment, that's great. I do appreciate all the comments. I try to respond to everyone. I really want your input so that I can get better at making these videos. I'm really close to getting to my 1,000 subscriber goal. So I think I'm 3 subscribers away. So another way that you can help me grow my channel is by sharing this video. Just share it on your social medias. That will help other people to find my channel and they can join us on these thrift upcycle adventures. So with that, we're going to jump right into project number 1. Okay, so for project 1, this is going to be probably the simplest one out of the 3 projects for today. So I ordered these frames from IOD. They're just wood boards, arched wood frames. And I'm going to use DIY's liquid patina in dark and decrepit to stain the outside frame part. So I like this because it looks like stain, but you can use it inside your house. It doesn't have a really strong odor, and it's water-based, so it's really easy to clean up. But it goes on and looks just like a stain would. And so I'm going to go around this entire outside frame with the dark and decrepit. Now this is a sealer as well, so it's going to seal this wood as well as darken it up. So I'm going to do the inside edge, and if I were to do this again, I would not paint this edge because I'm going to go back in and I painted the color of that second frame in there, and you'll see why in a minute. So here I'm using the Trimmings 1 mold, and I'm going to use this thinnest mold here on the end, and I'm going to use IOD's air dry clay. So this is just some cornstarch, and I'm just brushing it in that mold. This is going to help that clay to release really easily. So I just take it and kind of roll it into a snake and then just press it into that mold, using my thumb and fingers to just scrape off any excess clay. That micro rim really does help with getting that excess clay off. And then I just turn it over and flex the mold, and the casting comes right out. So I'm going to do this several times. I'm going to go around that entire middle frame there. And so I think I cast about 7 of these. And I'm just casting them and laying them on the side. And once I have them all cast, we'll go in and put them onto the frame. IOD's air dry clay is really soft and easy to work with. I watched a video several years ago of the sisters talking about their clay, and they designed their clay for people who have arthritis or some dexterity issues, that they would still be able to use it. So it's a really soft clay. So here I'm just going in and I'm mitering those corners to match the corners of the frame, and then laying these pieces in. Now these are designed to fit together, so the top of one is pointed and then the bottom of the other fits right over those edges. And so I'm just going around and fitting all this in. And once I've got it fit, then I'm going to go back in and I'm just using some wood glue here and spreading it out with a little tool, palette knife tool, and just laying it down in there. And I'm going to do this all the way around. Now, the one thing that I would have done differently is I should have put glue on the end of each casting so that the ends were glued together. This clay is still wet, and as it dries, it shrinks some, and so it pulled away. Now, if I glued the ends together, I might have had more cracking in my castings. So I guess you kind of have to decide which you prefer. But it did, as it dried, it pulled away and left some gaps in between. And I just went back in with some heavy gel paste and filled in those gaps. I'm just trying to wipe off any excess glue there. This wood glue does not dry clear. It will show up, so I was just trying to get off any that oozed out as much as possible. And if I did this again, I would push all those castings toward that inside edge instead of the outside edge. It made it really difficult to paint in the gap, which is why I ended up going in and I was trying to keep it off the stained edge, and it was just impossible. So I went back in and just painted that edge the same color as the castings. If I had pushed it out further or painted that bottom frame first and then put the castings on, it would have been better. But every project I learned something new and something I would do different on the next one. That's part of crafting, I think, is continual learning, new skills and new ideas and new ways of doing things. So I'm just going around. This is a paint by Fusion. I think this is Carriage House, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll try to leave it in the comments or in the information section of the video. So these castings are still wet. I'm painting over them now to slow down the drying time. So if you just have to be gentle with them, and so you don't mess up any of the details, but painting over it kind of forms a barrier between the clay and the air and helps it to slow down that drying process a little bit so you get less cracking. So here I'm using a Santa decoupage paper. This is by Decoupage Central, and I believe I ordered this off of Amazon. It's a beautiful Santa here. And I'm just going to use my fingernail to kind of go around and score the paper around that frame, just so I know where to cut it. And once I have that done, I'm going to turn it over and just use the wet tear method. So I'm just putting some water on my paintbrush, and you can see where I scored it with my fingernail on the back. And I'm just going around and wetting that. Now I do this on the back because sometimes that ink keeps the water from penetrating the rice paper. So doing it on the back just makes it really easy to get that water in there and to tear it. Now once I have that done, I'm going to mist the whole paper and lay it back down. And I'm going to use DIY's liquid patina to decoupage this Santa into the frame. There's a lot of different decoupage mediums that you could use. And I really like the way liquid patina works on rice paper. So I'm just putting a good coating down there, and then I just use my brush to smooth it out. Wetting that paper really does help to decrease the amount of wrinkles that you get. I rarely get wrinkles with rice paper when I do it this way. So I'm just going to continue all the way down, adding the liquid patina a little bit at a time, and then smoothing it down with my paintbrush. If you enjoy this kind of content, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. I'm just a few away from my goal of 1,000. And when I get there, I'm going to do a giveaway. So I'm just putting a coat of that on top, and this project is done. Let me know what you think about this one in the comments below. And if you would be interested in maybe purchasing some of these frames, I can order some more from IOD and put them on my website, emptynestcreation.com. But if you're interested in purchasing them, just let me know. I love the way this turned out. I think it would be a beautiful addition to anyone's Christmas decor. And the detail on these castings is just amazing. I love the IOD molds and all the detail that they get in there. And with that, we're going to move on to project 2. Now, this one is a little more involved. It's an advent calendar. And I think advent calendars just add to the excitement for children to count down every day until Santa Claus comes. And so for this one, I'm using a board that this was part of a cabinet that I used to have in my craft room. And the top of it broke, but I kept the side pieces, and they are like tongue and groove. So what I'm doing here is just adding some pieces of wood to the back to ensure that these boards stay together. And so I used some glue, and now I'm just using my brad nailer to shoot a few brads in there to make sure it holds together really well. And so this is what the front looks like. And so for this one, we're going to use, I think this is the Santa Sleigh mold by IOD. And I'm going to cast Santa in his sleigh and several reindeer to be flying across the top of this board. So again, I'm just using the IOD air dry clay. And for molds that are this size, that are really large, I just break up my clay into smaller pieces, and then I press it in really good. And I'm making sure that I'm pressing wherever those seams are. I'm pressing down really, really well to make sure that you can't see any of those seams on the front. And I press it well enough on the back that you can't see them on the back either. But it's just really hard to kind of roll it out big enough to push in there all with one piece. So again, I'm using my thumb and just scraping off any excess, using that micro rim to get a nice clean edge. And then I just go around and make sure that it's nice and flat so that it'll lay nice on my surface. Now for these, I have a little silicone cutting mat over to the side, and I'm just laying them over there to dry. I did not want to paint these on that wood piece because I didn't want to risk getting any paint on the wood. So for these, I cast them all, and then I let them completely dry. They dried overnight, and then I came back in and painted them before I glued them onto the piece. So I did the Santa sleigh, and then I'm going to cast 3 of these reindeer. And when you're sliding these out of the molds that have those tiny details, you just want to be really careful when you're releasing those tiny details like the antlers and the legs. Now here I'm just going to cast one of the presents, and this will be the piece that we move across our advent calendar to count down the days till Christmas. So here's the next day. They're all dry. I did on that little gift, I made a little loop out of wire, and somehow I did not get that on video, and I just pushed it down into the top where the bow is before it was dry, while it was still wet, so that it dried into the clay. And so now I'm coming in and I'm going to give all of these a base coat of Chateau. And actually, I'm doing this while they're still wet. These are not dry yet. Because I put this on to seal the clay in and to slow down that drying process. So these are not dry yet. Now they're dry. And so now I'm just coming back in with a variety of paints, and I'm going to paint these all up. And so I'm just painting the reindeer, and then I'll go in and paint the sleigh. And I just use what I had on hand. So I'm using some chalk paint, I'm using some fusion paint, I'm using some DIY paint. I'm trying to use up all the paints that I have before I buy new paints. And so I'm just using what I had on hand, and I will go back in and spray all these pieces and seal them before I put them onto the wood piece. And so here I'm painting Santa's suit with a red color. Now I've painted one of these before. These are very, very detailed. There's a lot of design on that sleigh. But for this one, I'm not going to paint all those details individually. I painted Santa's beard and his hair gray. And then I just went back in with a little white. I wanted it to be distinguishable from his brim of his hat. So I did the gray, and then I just kind of dry brushed some white on the top. Here I'm painting that little gift ornament. And this will be the piece that we move along to count down the days. And I sped this up because this was a very detailed project. And I know watching someone paint can get kind of boring. Now I'm coming in with just some gold paint, and I'm just going over some of those details to highlight them and make them stand out. And this isn't exactly dry brushing, but it's pretty close. I'm just hitting those high points. And I'm doing everything. The reindeer, the sleigh, the gifts, even on Santa and his suit. I'm putting a little bit of gold there. Now here, I went in and I stamped the numbers on, and I forgot to turn my camera on. But I just used a small stamp set for the numbers and just went through and stamped those on. And now I'm going to glue the Santa sleigh and the reindeer on. And I got this little gold cording at Hobby Lobby. And I'm just going to use this to connect the sleigh to the reindeer. And I'm going to make sure that I glue that end under Santa's hand so it looks like he's holding the reins. And then I'm going to try to glue each reindeer where their little gold trim comes around their neck. I'm going to try to glue that little ribbon right under that part of the reindeer so that it looks like they're all connected to their harness. Now, when I stamped those numbers, I went in and I put nails above each number so that as we count down, we can move that little ornament from 25 down to 1. I did put a hanger on the back of this so you could hang it on your wall. I know my children enjoyed their advent calendar every year. My daughter was actually talking about it the other day. And she's 30, so that is a big memory for them, and it just adds to the excitement um, of getting closer and closer and closer to the day that Santa arrives. So let me know in the comments below what you think about this one. This one was a lot of fun to put together. And with that, we're going to move on to project 3. Now, this is another one that was inspired by my grandma. I was at the thrift store the other day and I found this cake topper. It goes with a cake plate. Now, it didn't come with the cake plate. Now, my grandma had one that was just the aluminum, and I've been looking for one of those forever, and I can't find one. But this one was screaming 1970s and not grandma. So I'm going to make it look more like something my grandma would have had in her home. So I'm starting off by just taping off this handle. I didn't want to paint the handle. I didn't want to damage the handle in any way. I tried to take it off and I couldn't get it off. So I'm just going to put some tape around it to protect it while I paint. And so I'm just using that little blade to cut around those parts that are attached to the top of the cake topper. And I'm going to use Sweet Pickins milk paint, and I'm going to mix basil and in a pickle together. And so I'm just going to do equal parts of basil and in a pickle. And for the Sweet Pickins milk paint, you mix equal parts water with equal parts powder. And they suggest that you add your water first, and then you put your powder in. And so I found that this really does help. It reduces the chunks that you get in there. It makes it much easier to mix. So I did 1.5 scoops of each color and 3 scoops of water. And then you just whisk it up and you let it sit for about 10 minutes to thicken up. It's really, really runny when you first mix it. So you definitely want to let it sit and thicken up. I did take my cake plate cover outside and spray it with some shellac because I do want some crackle on here. And then I'm just going to go in and give the entire thing 2 coats of paint. Now, I didn't care what color was underneath when it crackled. I actually like the brown and I like the cream. And you really can't see the image. But if you didn't want those colors, you could spray paint it and then put your shellac on. And whatever color is under the shellac is what it will show when it cracks. And so here, the first coat always looks scary, but here I'm going in with that second coat. It covers so well. Now, you're not going to get a perfect finish with milk paint. It's going to look a little uneven. It's going to be matte in some spots and kind of shiny in some spots. And so you get a really vintage look with milk paint. If you're wanting something that's a little more refined, I would use a different paint. But I get some really good crackle. I do use my heat tool in between coats to enhance that crackle and kind of help it along. And so here I've got the 2 coats done, and I'm going to remove all the stuff from the handle. And then I'm just going to touch up around those little bottom pieces. Anywhere that brown is showing through, I'm just going to go around and touch that up. Now I could have done this. I could have just been really careful and painted around those. But you see, when I taped it, that handle stood up, and now it's laying down. So that's another reason that I taped it. Now I'm coming in with the winter forage mold, and I'm using the IOD air dry clay again. And I'm just going to use parts of the holly and berry mold here, and just make a bunch of different castings, just using different parts of the holly and berries mold. And again, I always use cornstarch. It just helps that clay to release out of that mold really easily, and I've never had any issues getting this clay out of there. And once I have those cast, I'm going to use some of the Quick and Thick wood glue, and I'm just going to go around and glue these on just in a freestyle pattern. I'm going around and pushing down really well to make sure that all of the pieces are connected where they hang over the edge. I'm just making sure that I've got good adhesion, that they're all sticking really well to this cake plate topper. And anywhere that I get glue on there, I'm going to wipe it off with a baby wipe. Now this is supposed to dry clear, but you still don't want to have big globs of glue on your piece. So some of my berries popped off, so I'm just going back in and gluing those down. And then I'm going to give, while the clay is still wet, I'm going to come in and give it another coat of the milk paint. Now again, this is just to help it dry a little slower and prevent some of the cracking. I still did get some cracking on these pieces, but not much. And that's okay, because I'm going to come back in with another layer of paint once these castings are dry. So I just wanted to give them a coat of the same color paint that's on the cake plate topper. And then that way, anywhere that it's attached to the base, if I don't paint all the way down there with the other color, it's not going to matter. It's all going to blend in. So I just give it 2 coats of this paint, and then I'm going to let it dry overnight. Now I'm coming back in with some fusion paint, and I'm just using a dark green. I'm going to use some red, some white, and a little bit of yellow, and I'm going to paint the holly and berries. For this one, I've used this mold several times already this season, and every time I paint it a little different. But I'm going to add just a little bit of yellow to these leaves just to give them some highlights. And then for my berries, I'm painting some of them in a creamy white color and some of them red. In my holiday decor, I generally use a little bit of both, red berries and white berries. And so I thought for this piece, which I am keeping, I thought I would do a little bit of white and a little bit of red. And so here I'm just coming in and painting those berries, some of them white or a creamy color, and then I'll do some of them in a red. And it did take 2 coats of this cream color to cover that green. And I'll come in later and add another little color to the top of these. But now I'm going to come in and do the red ones. Let me know in the comments below if you decorate with holly and berries. I grew up with decorating with holly, and so I do a lot of that still. I know some people only do like pine and evergreen branches and stuff, but I love the holly and berries. And you see, I did some red and realized I'd left too many, so I'm coming back in and doing some more of the cream colored ones. And now I'm just coming in with kind of a yellow like a butter, really pale butter color, and touching the top of those white berries. And now I'm coming in and I'm going to highlight the leaves. And so I'm using some of that green that I used before and putting a coat of the green on, and then I'm coming in with the yellow and just putting that on while that green is still wet. This helps to blend those colors, and they look really yellow when the paint's wet, but when it dries, it mutes it down some. So you see that looks really, really yellow. But when it dries down, it blends in more and it doesn't look quite so yellow. And so here I'm coming back to those first ones I did, and I'm redoing them because they didn't have enough of the yellow. And if you're doing this and you don't like it, you can come back in with the green and go over it and just keep working at it till you get something that you like. Now I'm going in and just adding a little dot to these berries. A lot of times they have yellow or brown or a green little spot on the tip of each berry. And so I'm just going in and doing that. These molds have that place in the details of it, so I always like to bring that out. And now this one is complete. I have it sitting on my grandma's cake plate. And I think this turned out so beautiful. It's going to be a great addition to my personal Christmas decor. And again, every time I use this, I'm going to think of my grandma. And I'm still looking for the aluminum one. She had an aluminum one with a little black top that went on this cake plate. And so I'm still looking for one of those that I can use year round. But I'm going to use this one for the holidays. So thank you so much for sharing your time with me. I appreciate you watching my video. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell notification. Help me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers. And share this out with your friends that you think might enjoy watching some thrift flips. I appreciate you so much. And I will see you in the next video.